let's go. Pack the camping gear. Let's go. Weekend's almost here. Let's go. Time to hit the road with the Carolina Camper Show.
What you see here is the sad result of a major failure on our 2006 Fleetwood Sun Valley pop-up.
That's right. Just as I had it cranked almost to the top, something popped loud in the back end. The top came down, left the sides out. We had a little trouble here.
You got that right, Randy. Fortunately, we always carry a backup tent. We were able to get it all set up and still had time to cook a couple of great steaks on the griddle.
Now we've got it back in the shop, so let's find out what this problem is.
As you can see, turning the handle, but nothing's happening, and plus there's a lot of wobble in this thing.
So I've already checked the wiffle tree and the lower crank unit, and both of those were fine. So this is where our problem is. First thing we're going to do is take this pin out.
And with a little help from a rat tail file, we get the pin out.
We've removed the pin, and now using a 5/8 deep socket, I'm going to go inside the drive hub, and there's a nut in here directly on the drive shaft. If I turn this, I notice now the top is actually raising, but when I let go, it's just spinning back down, which tells me that the clutch assembly is not working on the inside. So what we're going to have to do is remove this back plastic part off the camper and get access to the upper housing. So I'm going to remove this hex nut from the drive hub and pull that out, and then put your finger in the drive hub, because there's a spring and some washers in here. And notice ours just slides right off, and I think that should screw on, and it does appear that that is stripped out inside there.
I think it is. First step in that process is to remove the spare tire. Okay, tire's off, but before we can remove the back, there are some rivets at the very top we have to get to and drill those out. So we're going to have to raise the top up. First thing we're going to do is put this nut back on so we can get it lifted up. And then we'll prop it up and we'll drill some rivets out. That'll be the next step. Okay, we got it raised up, and we're just going to use some 2x4s to prop it up just enough to get inside and be able to work those rivets out.
Holding the back on, there's screws along the bottom and rivets on the top. We're just going to drill out these rivets on the top. We've already removed the screws from the bottom.
Once you drill the head off, you just take a rat tail file or something and pop the rivet out, and then you clean it up a little bit, and that's it. You move on to the next one. I think there are 6 or 7 of those across the top. Okay, the rivets are out, the screws are out on the bottom, spare tire's off, and we should be able just to pry this thing back, bring it over these little bolts that hold on the spare tire. And there's also 2 lighting pin connectors that you just pop off, one on each side, and you're free and clear.
We can see the threads are stripped on the drive shaft, so even when I put the hub on there, it doesn't even catch it all. There's nothing catching it. So Rick, it looks like what we're going to have to do is replace this entire upper crank assembly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's our best bet here. To get this out, Rick, we're going to have to remove this pin that's holding this shaft on. So I've got a little nail sitting where the pin is. So this is our first step. So let's just knock this pin out and remove the shaft.
Okay, so Randy's got the pin out. Now all he really has to do is just reach up here and put your hand back there and hold everything together manually, then just pull the shaft right on out.
What we're doing here is I'm going to slide the ratchet wheel up and then just going to lower everything else down. Oops, I dropped the pressure plate, but basically that's it. Once you get that out, you pretty much got everything except the bushings out of there, and we'll show you that in a second.
Well, we're definitely going to need a new shaft because we know this is definitely stripped out. Plus, we found a lot of oil or grease on the pressure plate. So we figured we'll either find a rebuild kit, or worst case scenario, we'll just have to try to replace the shaft. So we're going to search online till we find what we need, and we'll be right back.
Okay, it's been a couple of weeks. We've got our parts back from popupparts.com, and everything's laid out here. You can see here that definitely you can tell the difference in the threads of these. It was completely stripped out, so we're going to start putting this thing back together now. The kit came with a ratchet pawl and spring. We weren't going to replace this originally, but it does have a little bit of wear, so just before you remove the old one, look at it good, because there's a certain way that spring has to sit in there, but it's not hard to do at all.
Okay, Randy has the ratchet pawl all snugged up the way it's supposed to go. Now he's going to put in the rear bushing. It's the smaller of the two shaft bushings, so it's easy to locate. And he's just going to take the old drive hub and use that to just press it on home with a couple of strikes from a rubber mallet.
What you want to do here is make sure this bushing goes on the proper way, and you can find it put in wrong in some pictures. But if you'll use the diagram, and I'm going to show you a screenshot of that, it goes on from the inside, and you can press it on. I just used a block of wood and a C-clamp and just pressed it in like that so that it's facing outward. And I'll show you a picture of how it all looks, both bushings there. Now I'm going to put this washer in here inside this bushing, and then I'm going to have three things in my hand to hold at one time. I'm going to have the sprocket and chain, I'm going to have the clutch plate or the pressure plate, and I'm going to have the ratchet wheel, and I've got to slide all that down in there. Okay, now this upcoming part here, this is the most challenging part on the whole thing, just because you don't have enough hands. But you want to make sure that your ratchet pawl spring is in the right place behind the your ratchet wheel, and you got to kind of hold that back under the ratchet wheel as you slide it in. Put the chain on the bottom sprocket and do a little balancing act here and try to hold everything together and insert your drive shaft back in. And that can be a little tricky, just a matter of trying to line all the holes up properly. And once you get it, it just slides right in, and that's it. That's putting it back together, other than buttoning it up. I'm going to put the roll pin back in the sprocket. I just took a little nail and I used that as a guide to get the holes lined up before I tried to put the roll pin in. And this is pretty simple. Just line it up good, set your roll pin in, and tap it through.
Inside your crank handle, you're going to have three components. There's going to be a spring that lays in the bottom. Next, a white bushing goes on top of the spring. Lastly, there's a little washer that goes in on the top and gives it a little spring action. And this assembly screws onto the drive shaft. Then you take the 5/8 inch nut and screw it onto the drive shaft. And as you tighten it, you may need to just snug up the drive hub a little bit. Then you can continue tightening the nut. And I'd caution, don't over tighten it. Just make sure it's good and snug. And there you have it. When assembled correctly, the drive hub simply screws in and out. When cranking it up, the drive hub screws in and locks in the clutch mechanism on the inside and allows you to raise the top. Now we want to reattach the back plate, and we want to check to be sure that our wiring harnesses are securely connected. And once everything's connected, we'll line the panel up and get ready to secure it in place. The type of rivets used to secure the panel in place are called split rivets or panel rivets. This type of rivet expands much wider than a standard rivet and will draw the panel up tight against the aluminum frame. There are 9 rivets across the top and 6 screws on the bottom, and once you get these in place, this job is almost done. Now it's time to reattach the spare, insert the crank handle, and give it a try. Looks like everything's working like it should, and this old Fleetwood is ready for another Carolina camping trip. And now that we're back in action, we're going to be heading to Hamilton Branch State Park in Modoc, South Carolina. While there, we'll do a video review of this huge state park located on the shores of beautiful Lake Thurmond. And, of course, more great camping recipes. We'll even have a few laughs along the way. Oh, and one more thing. If you like our show, please subscribe to our channel. And if you have any feedback, we are always welcome to hear it.